what's good, y'all, and welcome to my review for Soul. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, another motherfucking movie review. It always feels good when I actually get to do one of these, because, you know, theaters are still closed, and I don't have Disney Plus or HBO Max. Speaking of HBO Max, guys, you guys will be getting a Wonder Woman 1984 review sometime in the near future. My mom just picked it up on. My mom just ordered the Blu-ray for. Well, actually, technically, it was the 4K Blu-ray because I got the Steelbook for it. I wanted to get the Best Buy version of it because I thought the thing looked really cool. And you guys know me. I'm a collector. I love me some Steelbooks. You guys know me. But the problem is, when we went to go check it yesterday, once my mom got back, it was already sold out online. Now, sure, I think some of the Best Buys that were near me, like Palmdale or whatever, had it, but you know, we're not gonna be able to drive all the way, so we had to. So thankfully, Amazon have their own exclusive Steelbook. Although I'm pretty sure it's like from the UK. It was like an import from the UK. But hey, it's the Blu-ray's region free. I have a PS3, which is region free, so it's all good. The Steelbook still looks pretty cool, but the Best Buy one looked way cooler, if you guys ask me. But whatever. I get to finally see Wonder Woman 84 and see what all the goddamn hubbubaloo was about. But anyway. With all that being said, guys, like I said, for this movie, the movie itself, Soul, was fantastic. I love this movie, man. It's from Pixar. You can never really go wrong with Pixar recently. They've been doing nothing but a lot of bangers. And yeah, man, without further ado, let's just jump right in. So the movie is directed by Pete Docter, I think so you say his name, and stars Tina Fey, Jamie Foxx, Rachel House, David, I don't even know how you say his last first name, Diggs, and more. And so the plot of Soul. Joe is a middle-aged band teacher who is an aspiring jazz musician. He wants to finally get his shot, get his big break, and then one day he finally has the opportunity to get his big break, but then dies via falling into a mud hole and is struggling to get back. But man, can we all just talk about how massive an L, how that's such a way to go, like falling down a manhole. Like, my man went from possibly getting the biggest dub in his life, finally getting the opportunity to play with this big jazz musician, finally getting the shot to play for his big break, only for him to die via falling into a manhole. Which first, before we jump right into the actual movie, so can we all talk about how massive of an L that is? I mean, that is what a way to go, man. Falling down a fucking manhole. Like, my man legit went from taking the biggest dub of his life, perhaps, getting the opportunity to finally, show what he's got and maybe make a name for himself as a jazz musician, only to then take the biggest L of his life that same day and dying via falling into a manhole. I mean, at that point, that's just disrespectful at that point, man. That is just disrespectful. But with all that being said, guys, the movie itself was awesome. The characters were, of course, fantastic. I loved 22 and Joe. I thought they were both really great characters. The banter between them was also fantastic. But actually, funny story about this one. The last movie I saw right before I went to watch Soul, if you guys follow me on my Twitter, or you guys check out my letterbox, was Whiplash. Was the last movie I saw before this one. And man, that is quite the film to go from. You go from Whiplash, a movie about a aspiring jazz drummer trying to be the best while being verbally abused by his teacher, switching over to a kids film about a jazz musician trying to make a name for himself and then dies via falling into a manhole. Quite the tonal shift, wouldn't you say? It's quite funny how I went from that to this. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Whiplash, go see Whiplash. It's a fucking masterpiece. I love it. Great film. Can't say enough great things about J.K. Simmons' performance. Good shit. So if you haven't seen Whiplash, go see it. But anyway, enough of me going on with Whiplash. That movie was fantastic. On to this movie. So, like I said before, the cast was great. Tina Fey and Jamie Foxx absolutely killed it as 22 and Joe. The music I thought was really good. Not only the jazz pieces what we hear throughout the film, but the actual score itself was also really good. And the one scene I think one of my favorite was around the beginning of the film, after Joe falls into the manhole and he's in like the great beyond, that lever that he sees into this massive like white void or whatever. That scene, I don't know about you, but like, and then when he falls, like when he kind of like gets back there because he obviously doesn't want to die yet. He goes right before and breaks through the that barrier and falls down, which gets into like the great before where he meets 22, and the movie really starts to go on. That whole scene weirdly reminded me of either like Annihilation. You guys remember that horror movie, that sci-fi horror movie? I don't know if it was really a horror film, but that sci-fi movie with the Natalie Portman that dropped a few years ago, and it was either that or it actually kind of weirdly reminded me of like that one scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I still haven't seen 2001 yet. Yes, I know it's heresy, but I'll watch it one day. When he's like falling down, when he breaks through that barrier and he's falling down, like the colors start to like, and he's like turns into like black and white, everything, and you have the sound, and he's like staring into like this white void or whatever before he gets to the great before. It reminded me of that one scene that I've seen clips of from 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you have like that dude in the spacesuit and like all these like colors as he's moving towards like this white void or whatever. It kind of reminded me of that scene. I don't know if any of y'all thought it reminded you anything of Annihilation or 2001 with like it kind of going in more of like a sci-fi horror-ish with that whole scene of the Great Beyond. But I don't know, it kind of really reminded me of either one of those two movies. But I just thought that was interesting. The jokes obviously were fantastic throughout the film. Which there's definitely a lot of black humor in this film. I noticed because predominantly black cast, black lead, takes place in New York. Takes place, I want to say, in Brooklyn, but it's usually pretty much New York. So those were pretty funny. But the funniest joke of all, and this is a joke that probably only someone like me would get, because I'm sure most of the people, this joke went right over their heads, especially kids. But when 22 and Joe are like going around the area, they get to like this place that's basically where the visual representation of the zone is, when you're in your element and all that stuff. Which I love those scenes too. When Joe I love those scenes when you see someone get into the zone, like Joe when he starts playing his music when he's on the piano and stuff. Always, I thought that looked really cool. But when he gets to the place where the zone is, she mentions, there's like all these different people here and all that. But the funniest thing is she grabs like this box and she's like, I've been messing with this team for years. You wanna know what team it is? The New York Knicks. When I saw that, I died. I was in tears, man. That shit is so fucking funny because we all know how shit the Knicks are, how the organization's almost low-key kind of cursed, which I'm sure actual Knicks fans, they were probably actually crying, being like, God damn it, why you gotta reopen these old wounds, I just died. I thought that was fucking hilarious. I was not expecting a basketball reference like that in this film. So shout out to Pete or whoever's idea the Knicks joke was. Shout outs to you, my man. That was fucking awesome. That was so inexpensive, but it absolutely killed me. That was hilarious. The cinematography, actually, throughout this film, mostly throughout the second half, I would say, is really good. I remember the first half, I thought, whatever, wasn't really paying much attention, thought the movie looked fine. But when I got the second half, I was like, yo, this movie actually looks really good. Like, when the cinematography get all good all of a sudden? So that was pretty cool. But I will say, in like a weird way, Joe's story and like the arc he goes through and the themes this film tackles, which are surprisingly adult and mature, on one hand, it's its greatest strength. Hence why you have some people call it, like when I was searching the movie reviews of it on YouTube, like after I finished all the film, I saw a bunch of people like, this film's a masterpiece, this is profound, this, that, and the third. But on the other hand, it's also its biggest weakness. Let me explain. Let me tell you guys like this way. If Inside Out, which is from the same director, was a movie that probably more so kids probably were able to take more away from the film because they were most likely going through the same things Riley was at around the same time they saw the film, Soul is the opposite of that. It's a film that I feel like more so adults will be able to take more away from it because they're probably going through the same things that Joe is. And the reason I say is because, like I said before, this movie deals with a lot of mature themes. It deals with very adult themes. In a way, this movie is basically a movie about self-discovery disguised as a kid's film. Which was actually kind of surprising that it goes with themes of like living with regrets, trying to find your purpose in life, things of that sort. And I was surprised that a Disney movie of all things were tackling such mature themes because you don't really see that kind of thing in a Disney film, at least from the ones I've seen. Maybe you could point out to some obscure Disney film from the 80s or something like, oh wait, no, this movie also did that before Soul or whatever. But in recent times, you haven't really seen that from either Disney or Pixar. And while I did think that was very refreshing, and I did think that was kind of interesting, I'm gonna be real. I don't think I took as much as away from the film that a lot of other people did, because like I wouldn't go out here and say like, oh, this movie deeply like touched me, or deeply struck a chord with me, or I thoroughly like I don't know, like I thoroughly like related to Joe's story, or things of that sort. That wasn't me. Like I was still able to take something away from the film, and I was able to relate to Joe's story in a sense, because I have been doing YouTube for 5 years. I'm trying to, and I want to have this channel, be successful and all that. But I'm also just like, some 21-year-old kid that's still going through college, you know what I mean? Like, life has not struck me yet. I have not stepped out into the real world just yet, but, besides that, I really dug that. I really enjoyed that this film did go in those directions, and I did enjoy that it did tackle such mature themes. Because you guys might remember I said the same thing about Zootopia, and how shocked I was, like, yo, holy shit, what the fuck? A Disney film talking about racism? Nani? And I was like, I also remember when I was watching that film in the theater, being like, yo, wait, hold on. Is this movie talking about racism? Am I in a Disney film? What is this? You know what I mean? And it was such, guys, it was really surprising once we got to like the later half of the film, and I'm like, oh, these are the themes. Oh, this is what y'all are going for. Okay, I see you. I thought it was really interesting, but yeah, and it's also, but at the same time, kids are probably not going to really take much away from this film, because kids aren't thinking about, living with regrets, find my purpose in life, this, that, there. They're not thinking long term. Kids are in the here and now. They're thinking now, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like I feel like kids who watch this film either from Disney Plus, or their dad or their parents put the Blu-ray on the TV, are going to be like, I like the hippie, I like 22. They're not gonna be like, I like the film talked about self-discovery, and it had a very deep psychological, went into deep philosophical conversations. Like, kids aren't gonna be like that. You know what I mean? This ain't Ava. They're not gonna be going in this. They're not gonna be like thinking. They're not gonna be discussing like this movie like it's Ava or whatever. But that was. But I appreciate the fact they did go in those directions. And like I said before, it was a nice change of pace for a Disney film to tackle such adult themes and such. As far as flaws they had with the film, the only thing I can kind of get to, and without getting much into spoilers, it kind of deals with the ending. Now the ending itself is fine. I thought the ending was good. The movie ends great. I had no problems with the ending itself. I just wish it was a bit more, I don't know what to say, what the word is. Maybe possibly direct, I guess, with what happens to 22. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to risk spoilers. But besides that, man, this was a fantastic film that I thoroughly enjoyed. And definitely a film that I highly recommend you guys check it out now that it's finally available on Blu-ray. Check it out if you guys want to. I highly recommend it. And overall, my final verdict for Soul is a 9 out of 10. So anyway, guys, tell me down below what you guys thought of Soul. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What did you take away from the film? From the themes and the story? Which one do you prefer between Inside Out and Soul? Do you think Soul was a little bit better, or do you think Inside Out was actually a little bit better? Because they're definitely very similar. And now that after seeing Soul, I'm probably going to go back and rewatch Inside Out once I get to 2015 on my top 10 movies of the 2010s list, which I'm still going to make that list. I'm still making through the movies. I'm getting some decent headway through. I think I'll probably go back and rewatch Inside Out again, just to see how I think of it now that I have matured a lot since I originally saw it in my film taste and everything, just to compare and see how it stacks up against Soul. Because, like I said, the movies definitely do deal with art, do have a lot of similarities to them. But anyway, guys, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you feel like it. Links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.